when life gives you lemons. What is going on, gang? Lemon tarts. First thing we want to do is start with our pâte sucrée. We're going to weigh 100 grams of icing sugar, 40 grams of almond flour, and then we're going to add 250 grams of all-purpose flour, and to finish off our dry mix, a pinch of salt. Give that mix a good whisk, or if you have a tamis, even better, pass it through that and get rid of any lumps. And then we're going to add 125 grams of cold butter. And then follow up with a clean set of paws and just coat your cubes of butter with your dry mix. Run the butter through your fingers and start to create some strands with them, ensuring that we don't have any naked pieces of butter. And we're just going to transfer that mixture to our workspace. This technique is called sablage. We're trying to cut our butter into our dry mixture while maintaining its solid state and keeping the temperature down. You're going to want to work relatively quickly here and maintain that temperature. It shouldn't take you no longer than 2 minutes and a half. But once you get to a point where it resembles a coarse sand, make a well, pop an egg into it, and combine all the ingredients. You're going to see that it's going to get a little bit messy here. Don't worry, it'll all come together. Once your dough starts to come up together, we're going to start spreading it across our worktop with our palm. This is what we call the fraisage technique. Pre-shape the dough however you see fit. I'll be filling a 6.5-inch fluted tart pan, but the dough should yield for 2 10-inch fluted tart pans. I like to use parchment paper as an anti-adhesive, so I'm just going to roll between a folded piece of parchment, and essentially what that's going to do is it's just going to prevent sticking, and it's a lot easier to manage because I can pop this directly in the fridge and then cut once it's rested. We're also using the parchment paper because we don't want to add any flour to our dough because that would end up drying it out, and when we roll it out it would be a nightmare. There would be cracks everywhere. At this point, I do suggest you use, if you have it, a fondant rolling pin. A lot easier to roll out on parchment compared to maple or stainless steel. Once you've rolled your dough out to your desired thickness, pop that boy in the fridge for at least an hour. Lemon marmalade time! You don't have to do this, I just like things that are bitter. Take your lemons, 2 of them, cut them into rounds, add 100 grams of sugar, 40 grams of water, bring it to a simmer and let that go for about 20 minutes. I like to add a little pinch of vanilla, and you want to let that go covered until they're nice and translucent. Make sure there are no seeds. For our tart shaping, instead of doing the OG way by just plopping everything on top and then pushing it in, for this, instead of doing the regular fonçage, I'm actually just going to cut everything out. I'll be using the bottom of my tart shell as my base, and I'll just cut that out, and then I'll just cut some strips to fit along my walls. And then we will just work in our dough, making sure we push from the corners all the way up, working around and around. And then once we get to a point where everything is flush, we just slice our top and we are good to go. Sorry for the low light, I'm a baller on a budget. Blind bake at 375 for 20 minutes. While we are blind baking our tart shells, you're going to want to go ahead and bloom half a sheet of gold standard gelatin. Make sure it is fully submerged and set aside. And to make your life a little bit easier, I suggest you roll out your lemons before you juice them. And, maybe just give them a little bit of love before you sever them in half. For our lemon curd, we're going to use 3 large eggs. We're going to add 150 grams of sugar. The ratio is 50 grams of sugar to 1 large egg. You can bump that down if you want. I find I like a firmer curd. I add a little bit of lemon zest as well because that's actually where we're going to get our lemon flavor. The oil from the zest is what's going to give us a really bold lemon flavor. Give that a good whisk. Add your lemon juice and give that a good whisk. To cook the curd, we're going to want to set ourselves up with a bain-marie. get yourself a saucepan and fill it with a very shallow amount of water. Do not let it touch the bottom of your bowl. Bring that to a high simmer, and we're going to pop our bowl on top, and we're going to begin to agitate our mixture. It is imperative that we continually whisk our mixture and keep everything moving. Just like crème anglaise, our egg proteins, if they bond too tightly, aka they are overcooked, we will end up with scrambled eggs. So you see thick ribbons at about 170 degrees Fahrenheit, take it off heat and continue to whisk. If you have swole forearms, you're doing a great job. Add 100 grams of cubed butter to your emulsion in small increments, and this is going to help cool our mixture. And add your bloomed gelatin. At this point, you can either pass your mix through a strainer or you can use an emulsion blender to make sure everything is nice and homogeneous. You tap any air bubbles out and reserve that curd. So I'm going to add a small amount of almond cream to my partially baked tart shell. This acts as a barrier between my curd and my tart shell. There is nothing worse than a soggy bottom. Hot tip, if you have uneven edges on your shells or you're just not happy with them, take a microplane and slowly file them down until they're nice and even and rounded off. After a 15-minute trip to the oven, my tart shell and the cream is fully cooked. I'm going to add my chopped confit and I'm going to pour in my lemon curd. If your lemon curd has already set, whisk it back to working consistency and spread evenly throughout your tart. Super important at this point that we let our tart set in the fridge. The gelatin will help, but I had a very traumatic experience with the unset tart at a restaurant. Very traumatic. To make our Italian meringue, we're going to make our syrup with 120 grams of sugar as well as 60 grams of water, and we're going to bring that to 120 degrees Celsius. Slowly drizzle your syrup into your egg whites, which are nice and foamy, until you have nice stiff peaks. The mixture should be completely cool at this point. All right, to make our white chocolate decoration, you're going to want to temper some chocolate, use an offset spatula, and do some swooshes on your acetate sheets. Because white chocolate has a higher fat content, it's going to take a little bit longer to crystallize compared to milk and dark. I will go into way further detail in another video, but go crazy with this. It's a lot of fun. Once all your elements have cooled, you can decorate your tarts. I'm using a closed star pastry tip to pipe my meringue onto my tarts. If you have some butane and a blowtorch attachment, you want to go ahead and torch those suckers. Reminds me of camping. Also, don't do it indoors. Very unsafe. Please don't. Thank you. Now we are ready to add the final touches to our tart. I like to go mint, lemon zest, and then shards. But if you feel like it, you can go lemon zest, mint, and then shards. Whichever way you want to do it, doesn't really matter as long as it looks pretty and tasty like so. Lemon tarts. It's not that hard. Just pay attention. Most of the steps are pretty easy. It's just a question of, putting in that elbow grease. A lot of elbow grease. And that's it. It's good. I don't think I'm gonna eat all of this. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Bye!